Okay, kids, here comes Preterite versus Imperfect numero dos. And in this video, we're going to explore some of the words or phrases that are associated with each tense that help you. When you see them in sentences, they help give away which tense you're going to use. And then we're going to explore the three situations. All right, now this continues your chart. And these are the words that can be associated with each tense. Now, these are not all of them, but these are the ones you're going to more commonly see. Again, we have preterite here on the left, imperfect here on the right. And the major difference between the two is that if you look at the words on the left for the preterite, these are going to be words that show you that actions are going to occur at specific times. And if you look at the words on the right, for the imperfect, these are going to be showing you that actions occur habitually. So, for instance, el domingo, last Sunday, versus the imperfect, los domingos, once we make that plural, it gives us that idea of Sundays. And Sundays indicate something happens every Sunday, then it's going to be an action by habit. Los domingos yo iba a la iglesia. On Sundays I used to go to church. We can use el and then put in any day, pasado, el lunes pasado, last Monday, so last whatever day. El fin de semana pasado, last weekend. Ayer, yesterday. Anteayer, the day before yesterday. Un día, something we already talked about, one day. We have words that are sequencing type words. Por fin, finalmente, finally. Sequencing words like moving the story along. El otro día, the other day. This one day, again, a specific time. Una vez, this one time. Una vez, one time. Skipping all the way to the bottom, por primera vez, for the first time. We know when it happened, for the first time. Ooh, excuse me. And the number of veces. We talked about that in an earlier slide. Tres veces, dos veces. How many times something occurred. One thing I want to draw your attention to is this right here, very key. Hace plus a period of time plus K is equal to ago. Hace 7 meses que, 7 months ago, and then you're going to use preterite. So this is something you see a lot in Spanish, and it's always with the preterite because you know exactly when it occurred, and it's the English equivalency of ago. Very important. On the imperfect side, los sábados por la noche, on Saturday nights, action by habit. Los fines de semana, on weekends, action by habit. Cada día, todos los días, every day. Algunas veces, a veces is sometimes. So I'm just going to write X for time, sometimes. I'm out of space here. Siempre, always. A menudo, once in a while. Raramente, rara vez, rarely. Por lo general, generalmente, usualmente, generally, usually. Again, all these are all things that show actions by habit, which are going to be the imperfect tense. And finally, we have arrived at the three situations. And if you notice the difference between this box on your graphic organizer and all the other boxes is that no longer do we have the preterite in one column and the imperfect in the other. That column has been taken away, and now we have one giant box. And that should be an indicator to you that we're looking at preterite versus imperfect being used in the same sentence. Now, the three situations are the one time that you can take away that question that we had talked about earlier. And that question was, is this a main action or is this background information? And normally when you can answer that question, you have either preterite or imperfect. Now, the three situations takes that away. We can take that question, we can toss it out the window, and we have to look at each one of the three situations for what they are. Now, the first question is, how do we know one of the three situations is happening? What do we know to look for? Well, the answer is this. There are triggers. There are certain words that when you see them in a sentence, they should tell you that one of the three situations is happening. And then it's going to be up to you to figure out which one of the three. But there are certain words that happen in the sentence that tell you that you're looking for one of the three situations. And those three words are durante, cuando, and mientras. During, when, and while. When you see one of those in the sentence, you should know that one of the three situations is occurring, and it's up to you to try to figure out which one of the three it is. Now, one of the suggestions that I always like to make for preterite versus imperfect is you should always read your sentences from start to finish before you begin picking any answers. Because sometimes one of these three words is embedded in the sentence. They don't always start the sentence. They could be somewhere in the middle. So I always like to get an idea or have a picture painted for me of what's going on in the sentence or even a paragraph before I start picking any answers, because sometimes something that occurs later in the sentence or later in the paragraph can affect an earlier answer. So always try to remember to read sentences from start to finish. Again, because you might see one of these words in there. So if you notice, we have three pictures here, 1, 2, and 3. One picture for each one of the three situations. You should also notice that in the pictures, we have two different types of lines. We have some straight lines and we have some squiggly lines. Now, based on the previous slides, it should be determined that the straight lines represent the preterite, in other words, like a nice timeline where we can pinpoint events, and the squiggly lines kind of represent the ambiguous nature of the imperfect tense, where things are a little bit more difficult to pinpoint. So straight lines are preterite, squiggly lines are imperfect. So in the first situation, we have two squigglies. So what does that mean? Well, it means we have two imperfects. This is the situation I like to call two ongoing actions. So this particular situation is one in which we have two actions that are going on in the past. And if you look at the picture, the other thing you should notice about the squiggly lines is that they don't cross each other. They are separate. So in this particular situation, we have two actions that are going on in the past where one has no effect on the other. They're just going on, chilling, and doing their thing. So, cuando yo leía el libro, tú bebías tu café. When I was reading the book, you were drinking your coffee. So you have two actions that are just going on in the past. One does not affect the other. They're just going on and doing their thing. Again, try not to overthink. Overthinking can become a problem. Again, with the preterite and imperfect, as it was with Sarah and a Star. Don't be thinking, oh my God, I dropped my coffee and it fell on your book, and so on and so forth. The sentence doesn't say that. It just says, when I was reading the book, you were drinking your coffee. Two ongoing actions that don't impact each other. All right, in the second picture, we obviously have two straight lines, so we have two preterites. The other thing you should notice is that the two lines do cross each other, and they cross each other at an intersection, at a specific place. So this particular situation is called cause and effect. A lot of times, it could be violent. I trip you, you fall down. I punch you, you fall down. These are two actions that occur exactly at the same moment in time, where one action affects the other action, cause and effect. Two actions that occur at exactly the same moment in time, where one action affects the other action. For instance, cuando los estudiantes, I'm going to shorthand this to save some space, oyeron la música, empezaron a bailar. When the students heard the music, they began to dance. One action, probably not dance appropriately if you went to homecoming, but one action affects the other one. They happen at exactly the same moment in time. Think of snapping your fingers. As soon as they heard the music, they began to dance. It's like an auto-programmed response. Cause and effect happen at exactly the same moment in time. The last situation is, you notice we have one of each. We have one imperfect and we have one preterite. And notice there's, again, an intersection at a point. This situation is known as ongoing interrupting. And in this sentence, what we have is, and by the way, situation number 2 is probably the rarest. It occurs the least often, while this one's the most common. In this particular scenario, we have an action that is going on in the past, just minding its own business, when something comes along and interrupts it. The action that is going on is the imperfect, and the interrupter is going to be the preterite. The classic example is, while I was studying, the phone rang. In other words, the phone ringing interrupts the studying. Let's go with a different example here. Mientras nadaba, un tiburón me comió. Here's my imperfect. Here's my preterite. While I was swimming, a shark ate me. Well, that certainly interrupts the swimming process. So the thing that is going on is the imperfect. The thing that interrupts it is the preterite. Now, commonly, if you look here back in the box up in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, we have 3 expressions. En el momento, en el instante, de repente, de pronto. These are normally 3 different expressions which mean suddenly. And a lot of times you'll see them in situation 3, and they're kind of a giveaway that you're in 3 because they show actions that interrupt. So I could easily add to this sentence, mientras nadaba, de repente, un tiburón me comió. Suddenly a shark ate me. And again, that is the interrupter. So these 3 up here, suddenly, show interrupting actions. So again, situation 1, 2 ongoing actions, 2 imperfects, don't affect each other. Situation 2, cause and effect. One action affects the other action. They happen at the same moment in time. And then number 3, we have an ongoing action interrupted by something else. The ongoing action is the imperfect. The interrupting action is the preterite. Look for the triggers durante, cuando, and mientras, because those will tell you one of the 3 situations is going on. And sometimes in order to do that, you have to read sentences from start to finish. If you have any specific questions about the stuff that you've listened to regarding preterite versus imperfect, and I'm sure there will be some, I'm happy to take them in class, and we're going to do a lot of practice. The best way to get good at preterite versus imperfect is to just run across a lot of the different situations until you become very comfortable with them. And we're going to be doing plenty of that in class. So again, if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to take them in class, and we're just going to do a lot of practice until we get better at it. Okay, kids?